graphics.
Nice.
I'll blame Bridget. I don't care. Sitting over there.
I'll eat it.
Flipper,
Yeah.
of course, it goes all the way under. Unlike Dave, my hips work.
You have the logo and the.
He's showing off now. Look at
My
my
hips, look.
You know, I'm telling you, I think
Hips don't lie, man.
I think the slide thing put my hips up. I think it's kind of what broke the camel's back kind of thing. All the slides I would do
You know what
continuously.
you should do a slide with the walker.
Huh. I might have. I
You
might
know
have.
his slide in his videos? Yeah.
I might have to use a walker in the next video.
He would be like this.
Not exaggerating.
Hey.
Don't let this happen to you.
You should make it so you can pop it out.
go.
On the other two also? We've been live this whole time?
53 seconds.
Good
Nice.
lord, okay.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Team Powerhouse Show, live with you every Tuesday night. A very exciting show, a very exciting man in the middle over here, Mr. Marco Miranda, owner and partner of the Miranda Team Home Inspections. His partner in crime, Miss Melanie Miranda, is not here with us today, but hopefully watching and will be there to help fill in with questions and comments.
She better be watching.
Right? I hope so. We
Doesn't
ha-
she chime in sometimes?
She
Yeah.
maybe does. I know Bridget does. Bridget's in the studio over here today, also in the background, helping prepare for today's show. Eric Vasquez on your far right, David Lamel here, Thane behind the camera, and Marco Miranda, the man, the
The hot
myth, the
seat.
legend in the hot seat. Absolutely.
Hot seat. I
It's
like
So-
gonna be an informative one.
Informative. If you guys have any questions out there during the show about anything with homes or inspections, it can be completely off topic. Feel free to reach out, send a question through your TikTok, your Facebook, your Instagram, and any other social media source you're watching, YouTube, etc. And if you happen to ask a question and we miss it, Marco will get back to you later on for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
You can tell
We'll
Make
get
sure
the
to-
question to him.
Make sure to maybe tag him in the question,
Absolutely.
Marco Miranda or Miranda
The
Team
Miranda
Home
Team.
Inspections. Yeah,
Yeah, we're good at getting back to people with questions.
absolutely. And very
Right,
knowledgeable at
so-
that too. So we are going to talk about something that's been coming up in conversation a lot lately. As everybody knows, we've been through a tremendous amount of water, and water has really been a sore element in our lives, and it has been for a long time, but more and more predominant in homes, in the environment, and what's happening with it, and how to really, again, go over protecting your home, how to know about what water is in the environment that can cause problems. So, you know,
The varying levels of water.
Varying
From the lowest
levels.
level, where we're talking about just humidity,
Yep.
versus water penetration from, like,
To
like the
flood.
Noah's Ark flood we
Yeah,
had a couple
flood,
weeks
yeah.
ago, or stuff like that.
absolutely.
I started the Ark.
You the Ark in New York. You saw the Ark in New York.
You should have had it done by the time we had the storm 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got sidetracked.
you have enough room in that
Dave
Ark.
doesn't know what we're talking about.
The
You know,
Ark?
The animals, two
Yeah, of
animals,
course.
Noah's Ark.
Moses, yeah, I know the
Okay.
whole thing. Yeah.
Moses.
Moses.
wasn't on there.
Moses was involved. He was involved in the Ark, though.
That's why it's called Noah's Ark.
I'm sorry, not
Noah.
Moses. Noah. Sorry.
No, part
No,
of
Moses-
it.
Moses could have been used.
You just learned something.
Sorry, guys.
That's what this is
Brain
about.
freeze.
No,
Moses, Noah.
Moses?
All right, so going back into the whole inspection conversation, I apologize, got sidetracked with Noah and Moses over here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about humidity, right? So humidity is a
Yes.
conversation that we all know about. Humidity is outside. If you walk outside, your glasses fog up, and then you have humidity that can be in your home, and then in your basement. So let's talk about humidity a little bit. So, what is humidity in a basement?
So humidity is water, right? I mean, you sometimes you feel it. You know, you feel the wetness of a basement in here.
Mhm.
As soon as you walk in, like, oh my God, it's so humid in here. Humidity is not a good thing to have in your basement, right? You can have a flood, and that's not good, and people will be freaking out because they can actually see it, but you can't see humidity. You can feel it sometimes, but you can't really see it. So some people won't do anything about it until it becomes a major issue, right?
And depending on how high the humidity is, because in the summertime, it's definitely more humidity, right?
Absolutely.
Spring,
Yeah,
summer.
absolutely.
And sometimes you can touch a wall,
Yeah.
feel the moisture.
Sometimes you have 70% humidity in a basement, and what are the problems that, you see from humidity, right? It could be, so many problems. It could be mold, you can have mold growing. Mold needs perfect temperature, needs, food, and needs humidity, right? So as soon as you get the humidity there, then it's just gonna, the mold's gonna start growing, right? And then all of a sudden, you can't even see it, it will be behind walls and everything, and until it's a major issue.
Me first.
Yes.
So.
We both looked
you
up at the
talk
exact
about-
same
you talk
time and
about
pointed.
mold, and it's a good time, because I keep thinking about this, because I'm going through a basement with a client.
Yes.
And you have black mold and you have white mold.
They're
What's
all-
the difference?
They're all the same. Mold
It's the
is
same mold.
Mold is mold. A
So
couple
why
years.
is it white sometimes
So
versus
the
black?
black one that people are so scared about, it's called Stachybotrys.
Saki buttress?
Stachybotrys.
Stocky buttress.
Yes. So it came out on the news a few years back. Bridget won't remember, but it was a while back, and that was bad. That was really bad. But it's no different than any other molds. If you're a healthy person and you don't have any respiratory problems and everything, mold might not even bother you. But if you have asthma, if you have problems with your lungs, yeah, it will bother you really bad. Some people will end up in the hospital if they just go into a house with mold and come 5 minutes later come out, and then all of a sudden they end up in the hospital because they can't breathe. Now that all comes from a perfect environment inside of a dark place. Right? If you have a dark basement, right, and you have humidity, you have food, which would be cardboard boxes or drywall or anything that, and then you have the perfect temperature, that's when you're going to start having the mold grow.
So going back into mold, you mentioned white mold, you mentioned black mold. So to you, white mold, because there's this stuff that looks like ice on the floor sometimes that looks like crystallization,
And
looks
the
like
walls,
snow,
yeah.
or the walls. Is
That's
that?
efflorescence.
Fluorescence.
Is it? So that's efflorescence.
And that-
It's-
and sometimes
That's
that-
water crystallizing as it comes through.
That's actually the salt that you have in concrete that's crystallizing, it's coming out.
so that's not mold.
That's not mold.
No.
You can,
Because the white
you know,
stuff I know on the walls, and efflorescence on the floor I know,
And
but I'm talking about crystallization
yes.
of like,
And sometimes that gets very woolly too.
yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. If
So
it's on the
that's not
concrete,
mold.
it's not mold, it's efflorescence.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
No, but-
I
you
learned
can
something
wipe it
new.
off, whatever, it doesn't cause anything. There's no allergies that it puts out there or anything.
Yeah, the
It's
trends I
just
tend to
salt.
pick up on is that the white mold is usually up on the ceiling. So it's like along the floor
Yes.
joists or the
Yes.
floorboards.
Yeah.
And the black mold is on the lower
Especially
level.
if you
so-
put the insulation upside down and the paper, if you look at a ceiling in the basement and you see the paper on the insulation, that's installed the wrong way.
Incorrectly,
The
right.
paper should be going up, and you're supposed to see
Pink stuff.
the pink stuff, right?
We can- we-
Yeah, one of your inspectors said,
Glass.
easiest way to remember it is paper to people.
Paper to people. I
Yes,
like that.
wherever the people are is
Right.
where the paper should be facing. So in the attic,
Smart
the
person.
paper should be
Yeah.
facing down. If
Yes.
it's in the basement, it should be facing up, where the
It
people.
should, the paper should always go towards the heat, where the heat, like if you're putting it on the outside wall, the paper should be on, towards the inside. If you put it downstairs, it should be going up. If you're putting it upstairs, it should go down.
And we're talking
And,
about
and
fiberglass.
so when you install it upside down, what happens is you start having growth, right? Because you have humidity, and if you don't have a dehumidifier, right? And I always say this, and because there's so many codes that come up every year, right? You get different codes. Like right now, we have the code of radon. Years ago, nobody cared about radon. Now it's code. If you're building a brand new house, it has to have a passive system, and that's part of code. So the dehumidifier should also be part of code, because every basement, you're on the ground, you're gonna have moisture.
It's funny you say it. I tell people all the time, in any basement, as you all know, you should have a dehumidifier, especially come spring, summer, right? Even in the fall and winter, you should be there in the background on or available to should it get warmer down there. Maybe you have too much heat's on, yada, yada, yada. But the dehumidifier is one of the things that people don't always have in a basement, and they'll say, we'll never have a problem down here. And that's not the right answer, because you don't know a problem until you have a problem. You don't want to wait for the problem. Just have it down there and let it be available that when it hits a certain level, it just clicks on
Yep.
and pulls the moisture
Yeah,
out.
depending on the basement, it may not be convenient, because I know some folks don't wanna come down and empty that bucket.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And I know some of the
It's
basements have-
2024. Nobody should be emptying out a bucket.
Well,
You know,
You come
there's
on
pumps,
those
there's
to-
I had a guy-
dehumidifiers with pumps.
I know a guy who knows a guy who will come to your house and
That's
help
right,
you.
right, tell him about it,
Exactly.
right? I'll
I
be
had a
there.
dehumidifier,
Yes.
and I said, Marco, he came to my basement, we did a whole walk around and that kind of thing, it was great. I said, listen, you need to get on the back of your dehumidifier, the thing with the hose. I go, I didn't even know where it goes. So he's like, boom, you know, thing, grab the hose, cut the piece, boop, boop,
Put it right into the.
right into the sump pump. It was
That's it.
perfect.
It's done, right?
Life
Yeah, but what if you don't
changing.
have a sump pump? Can that
Uh,
water go out into the?
You have little pumps that
Is
you
it
can
like a
buy,
washing machine
they're
discharge?
about $150, $160 at Home Depot or any home improvement store will have it. It's a little pump that usually you see it on the side of the furnace, right? So if you have a furnace with the air conditioning, that you have that little pump, you can get a little shelf and put your dehumidifier in there and have it drain into that little pump. If you don't
You're
have
talking about
that,
the condensation pump?
the condensation pump,
Okay.
that's all it is. So instead of a
condensa-
condensation pump, it could be the humidity drain pump. You know, you
Can the
change it.
condensation pump handle the amount of water
Absolutely,
comes in?
yes.
No
The
kidding.
more water you put into that pump, the better it is, because sometimes it's only used for, if you have a conventional furnace, it's only gonna be used for air conditioning. So throughout the winter, it just sits there doing nothing, and then sometimes you go to use it and it's not working,
Mm.
right? So if you put the dehumidifier draining into it, it just keeps running, and the pump will last longer.
Yeah.
That's some
I know.
information right
Yep.
there.
Facts.
Facts.
And now you can put a
Dave
a
likes to say
shelf.
that, so
You
I steal his thunder. Facts.
That's good. I like that. It's perfect timing, though. I like that. So going back,
So
just
you
go ahead.
can actually put a shelf and drain it into your washer drain or somewhere. You can
So we
always
can go
find
into the,
somewhere.
it can
to
go
drain.
into the, both the
Yes.
septic and the regular sewer?
Yes, you can put into the septic. Septic guy might not agree with me, but.
May not want
let
to
me
hear
tell you,
that.
A little bit of water, I mean, if your septic is about to go bad, maybe you wanna save that little
But
bit
it's,
extra water.
but it's,
not
hold on,
that
it's
big of a-
water from the air. It's not like you're putting in soapy water
No,
or something
it's-
Yeah,
else.
but
It's-
yeah.
but that water has, is higher in acid
It
than,
is a
than
little
regular
higher.
water, so.
However, that little bit is ain't gonna change the world, you know,
Yeah.
of the septic, you know, it's not going to be that big.
Going back to the mold in the basement thing specifically, though, obviously the people who are out there who are worried about mold, and you shouldn't be worried about mold if you know how to protect yourself from mold, right, Marco? Would
Yeah,
you say?
Absolutely.
Mold is something that is in every house, as a matter of fact. I learned that from you and your team. Every house has mold in it, absolutely does. If you did a mold test and had Marco and his team come over there and do a mold test in your house would show that it's got mold spurs in it. There are some mold that is good mold.
There's over 100,000 species of mold that been discovered, but there's a lot more that they haven't come up with. You know, they still, we call those allergens, you know. Allergens, if you're an allergic person to everything, you might have a problem with just allergens, you know.
Yes.
Which that's with a lot of things in the house.
And if you have pets in your house, depending on what kind of pets you have, they may also create more mold or more allergens, right?
Allergens, yes.
So people don't typically, what's a good way to get rid of that kind of stuff? We'll use
So-
the purple light, what's it called?
Yeah, well, the percolite, that's all for the furnace. Like if you have a furnace and you're circulating the air, especially if you have a newer house, you know, new code is to have the house suffocated, right? They do a blower test door and
Yeah.
the house has to be airtight. So you're gonna have stale air if you don't open up the windows, if you don't ventilate, right? So what happens, your furnace is just circulating that stale air, and then you're gonna have problems with breathing and problems with respiratory problems. So the UV lights that we put in the furnace goes right over the coil, so any germs or anything that goes through there gets killed, right? Which is pretty awesome. It doesn't, like a lot of
Can that be
people
put
would-
on a boiler and also a furnace?
no, it has to be with a furnace, yes. It cannot be put in the
So
boiler.
spinning on that, so, I know you're talking about recirculating air,
Recirculating
but if
air.
you're having a high efficiency furnace,
Doesn't
and
matter.
it's taking the
You
air
still-
from the outside,
You do not take air from the outside if you have a high efficiency. That's for combustion, not for, the heat that comes out of the vents is still, you have one vent that supplies and another one that returns. So a lot of times, like, for example, COVID, right? People will be like, oh, lock yourself in the room, I'll bring you food. But you're in the room that you're circulating the air through the whole house, right? So those germs are going through the whole house. So that UV light will kill those germs. Doesn't matter if you have a stomach virus or if you have COVID or if you have something going on,
Very
it'll kill
interesting.
everything.
So that air intake is strictly for combustion only. It's
And
not-
the UV light, it's also used for water, right? And when you have well water, if you want to kill the bacteria in the water, that's what they use is the UV light.
So people who are hypersensitive to the concern of getting COVID, you could put a UV light in your house.
They did that back in
Right,
2020.
right.
A lot of places were doing that.
We were doing.
But you haven't seen
Lots of
homes
them.
per se. You haven't seen homes per se, but you can get a UV light for your home
Yeah.
that kind of does the whole,
It costs about, the UV light, it's about $600 installed. And, it's, the light bulbs last a very long time. And then you can replace just the light bulb. It's very easy. You don't need a service guy to come in. You just twist it, pull it out, put a new light bulb and put it back in.
we're
And
jumping
once
all over the place,
I
starting
know.
with humidity and
Let's
getting to
focus
mold
on
and
the
getting
well- on water.
to. No, but this is good stuff though. Just it kind of, it shows how we're mold, air, moisture, all these different things are kind of related to each other.
And moisture, humidity, it's such a big element to the whole mold portion of it. Like, just in the ductworks and everything, you have a lot of moisture in the basement. If you have a finished basement, your furnace is sucking air from the basement and throwing it into the ductwork. And now you have heat, you have moisture, perfect environment for ductwork to have. mold.
Which brings me back to why baseboard heat is even better than the forced hot air.
I knew you were
And I'm
gonna say
a big
that.
fan of the oil
Big fan
baseboard
of
heat.
oil, yes.
Big
Yes.
fan of oil heat. And if those of you who were
Doesn't
scared
have
of
to be
oil,
It can be gas.
it could
Except in
be.
the summer.
It could, right, it could be. Well, no, I still think that the oil baseboard is the way to go every day.
And a lot of new houses are doing that. They're doing boilers and they're doing the air handlers for the AC because it's like, it's the best way
More
to heat up a
efficient.
house,
Yeah.
no doubt. I'm not gonna fight you on that one. but,
So back to the basement for a second. So, you know how like the attic can get moldy because of poor ventilation, right?
Yes, good
ventilation.
So
point.
is the basement a mixture of a dehumidifier and better ventilation, or is it just the dehumidifier will solve it?
So if you take one element out of all the elements that the mold needs to grow, you're most likely not going to have it, right? You might have a leaky faucet or a leaky pipe that might still cause it. And by you cleaning the mold, you're not taking care of the problem. You will have to find the source, what's causing it, right? What's causing it might be high levels of humidity in the basement, or it might be a leaky pipe that you might not be able to see. right?
It's very
So-
interesting that we bring
there's-
this conversation. You mentioned the attic. I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but we don't put dehumidifiers in attics, and we really should probably put a dehumidifier in an attic.
You don't, because you're supposed to have ventilation. If you have ventilation, you keep the humidity low.
But no matter what kind of ventilation, you walk up into an attic, it's 150
Mechanical.
degrees.
Mechanical is the best way that you can do it. Now, the new systems new houses that they're building, they're spraying foam insulation on the sheathing, right? So the attic is already, it's considered a portion of a livable space, really, because you don't need ventilation anymore, right? So those are a lot better, they're coming out with these things and it's better now for certain things. What's gonna be like in the future, who knows, right? Because these are very new
Yeah, but where
things.
would you
coming
run the
out.
water for the dehumidifier?
So this is
Not the gable vent dripping
But
down.
you
So-
would be a waste because you have so much ventilation that you can't dehumidify it,
so in an attic, even my own attic, I'd say, right? I know there's usually some kind of a window at one side or vent or some kind of sort, right? But you still walk up into the attic and it's hot, and especially come summertime. Huh? Might be 150, 120, whatever it is, right?
So it's acceptable with 20-degree difference, If you have 100 outside, it's okay to be 120, even though if you go in there.
Until you want to go to the attic and you have to pass out because you got a suitcase out of the
Yeah, but
attic.
it feels like it's 150 and it's actually 120.
Right.
It's
So
just
what
like-
happens a lot.
It's just like a different type of.
The worst cause of molds in the attic, it's actually in the wintertime, when you have loss of heat, right? If you don't have good insulation and you have loss of heat going into the attic, that heat is going to get up to the sheathing and it's cooling off. So it's
That black-
creating condensation, right? So by the time it hits the sheathing, it will be cold, it will be water, and then it starts creating molds because of that water is gonna be there. So good ventilation around lights, sometimes you protect the lights
soffits.
and you have to really cover it up nice so you don't have a problem.
So I mean, again, going back, but you don't put a dehumidifier in an attic, but in theory, it seems like it would be the right thing to do, because you put one in a basement, which is not even close to as moisture as it is an attic, but we don't put one up there.
No.
I wouldn't agree.
You
No,
would
because
not
the
agree?
basement's closer to ground level, and that's where the water table and.
Well,
and all of
it's all about like what we're talking about today is the water coming into the basement, which
Right.
sometimes you don't need water, but you need, you have the humidity coming through the walls.
Yes.
Concrete is like a sponge, right? So if you have water against the concrete.
Hold on,
it's
you
gonna
said concrete's
soak
like a
in.
sponge. I'm not sure that
that.
everybody out there would.
Why do we use it as a foundation?
I was gonna say,
It's
no one really look at.
Because nobody else coming up with something better.
I mean, if you're out there and you're watching and
Yeah,
listening, would you consider that concrete is like a sponge? You wouldn't think that in your mind. By the way, does anybody have any questions out there, thoughts or concerns? Okay, good.
No,
So-
everybody's riveted.
Riveted, right, they're kinda like at a loss for words, grabbing their spouse, going, we need to talk to Marco.
Yeah.
Dave's talking about putting a dehumidifier in the attic.
But Marco said no. Don't do it.
I
Put it in
think
the
they're gonna fight, I
basement.
think they're gonna fight.
Wait, come down from the attic. You said in the basement.
Right, but hold on, so like the attic though, just to make sure I understand, so to keep the moisture down in the attic, you don't have to worry about
Good
it.
ventilation.
Good
Too
ventilation.
much ventilation is just as bad.
And how do you know if you have good ventilation in the attic?
You have to have an airflow. Doesn't matter if the air goes that way or that way or going up.
But
As
as a
long as you have an
homeowner,
airflow,
as a homeowner who doesn't know, how do
that's when
they?
you call us.
There you go, that's when you call.
We're here
Or
to
you
help
call
you.
your realtor.
So
Right.
sometimes you can see like, from the outside, you can see a ridge vent. But
Yes,
then you go inside and you look up and you're like, it's not working because it's not, they never cut it. They just put it to look nice on the outside, but they never cut the wood out, so you have no ventilation.
that's pretty crazy.
Now, if you have soffits and you have ridge vent, that's good, because the cold air will come through the soffits and the hot air will go through the ridge vent. But now if you add gable vents on top of it, now it's gonna get confusing, which way am I gonna flow, right? And then you start having poor ventilation. You know? Mechanical ventilation is probably the best, because you can put a nice fan on your gable vent with a thermostat, right?
Yep, hits
So
100,
Hits
kicks in.
100, kicks in, it hits a 90, however you wanna put it, set it, but as soon as it kicks in, that's gonna force the airflow that you need. It's gonna force it, so you're always gonna have good ventilation if you put a fan. Don't put a fan that you have to go there with a switch, because you're gonna
Right,
forget about it. and
right.
Electrical is very expensive now.
Right.
And, so you just put on a thermostat, it's not that big a deal.
So with that ventilation aspect in mind, would opening a window, if you have a basement that has windows, would that
Yeah,
improve?
ventilation is key, right? And, that's even with your
Well,
house.
In the, what season are we talking about opening a window? Because it's summertime, I'm not sure we're gonna open a window, because that brings moisture into the house.
Yeah, but you also need fresh air sometimes to ventilate it.
I'm
right?
just talking about for movement of air,
Movement, yeah.
for movement
Um,
of
I
air,
thought
because
about
that's what the problem is in the attic,
But
is
the
that the air's not
problem, the
moving.
problem with that is like people will go and open it and leave it
Forget
open
it,
for
right.
months after it rains and everything, and then
Right.
all of a sudden you're getting water coming in through the window. So it's not very practical, right? We do have, and trust me, this can get complicated where you wanna go, right? You wanna spend $100,000 in
Let's
your
break through
house,
that wall, let's do
and it's
it.
going to be amazing, yes, you know, it's well worth it, right, sometimes. But we have ERVs, right? So ERVs is, these systems that we put in the
ERV
basement.
stands for, what does ERV
Uh,
stand for?
so,
Come
yeah.
Sorry, on the
People don't know
spot.
what an ERV
There's
is.
ERV on the paper here?
So, I knew it.
That's okay, I'll come back to it.
So it's exchange, I'm not gonna make it up because I don't know.
Revenue value, okay, go ahead, next one.
It just recycles the air, right? So-
Energy recovery ventilation.
What is
somebody
that?
will do that.
Energy recovery ventilation.
So
Energy
you also
recovery
have the
ventilation.
HRV, which is the heating, with the.
Recovery
you know,
ventilation.
So all it does is takes the air from the basement and puts it outside. And then you get the air from the outside and puts it in the basement. And the reason that it's called the exchange, the exchange that I knew because you cross the air, right? So the air from the basement is gonna cross the air that's coming from the outside, and you're going to transfer some of the heat from that air into the air coming in from the outside. Especially in the winter months, when it gets really cold, you need that, right? If you have cold air coming from the outside, it's gonna freeze in the basement, right? But because you have the system of crossing the airs, then it's not going to be cold, and it's gonna be a little cooler, but not cold, right? And those systems work amazing. I mean, we installed them quite a bit with the radon company, and it takes care of the radon. If you have a dirt basement and you can't put a system for the radon, that brings it down half. Whatever you have, if I put an ERV system, your radon is gonna come down half.
Huh.
So it is to ventilate the basement, it's one of the best things that you can put, you know? It's definitely worth.
But ventilation will help with the mold though?
Yes.
Okay.
Ventilation is, sun, if you can, when you have a house and you have a lot of humidity in the basement and you keep your shades closed all day and your house is really dark, you will have problems with the respiratory problems.
So it's like termites, it doesn't like light.
So termites, let's talk about that. Big deal with moisture, right?
Yeah, they're like-
Termites,
they're like-
any wood destroying insects, they love moisture, right? They have to, for them to survive, they need moisture. So termites come to your
Full
house,
circle.
right?
Yeah.
So they come to your
Isn't it
house.
ironic how a wet basement is
Yeah.
not just
A wet
about the
basement.
mold, but
Right.
it's a breeding ground for
Absolutely.
termites.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's a very good point about the termites being, I was just in someone's house the other day and I said to him, we're looking at a house we're buying it with mom and dad over this also. It was really cool because mom and dad got to meet me and then I got to show them how we go through our house. Obviously, like one of the Miranda team home inspectors, going through our house and talking about things. I said, termites.
Not one of your better inspectors.
So going through the house and so I'm talking about termites, you always have to check your house for termites. You bought a house, just because you bought a house 2 years later, you should make sure you're checking for termites in the house because it's important to kind of keep on top of things. Checking for radon every couple of years. You should always check for termites every couple of years. People buy houses and then they don't check anymore. And then later on, there's a problem and it's too late or it's a problem.
I heard that so many times. I've been living here for 20 years, I never had a problem with
I never seen
with
any
termites.
I've never seen termites before. I'm like, you won't see termites, right? You won't see termites. You might see the tubes of the termites, but at that point, because you haven't been checking and maybe having inspected and
Yeah.
then maybe making to remediate. So remediating is how, and then we talked about remediation of termites, not to go sideways on termites, but like how often, what kind, yada, yada, yada.
Yes. So the termites will need moisture. They
Yes.
come to the house and eat the house, and then they go back to the ground and get moisture, right? So if you have a lot of moisture in the basement, they don't need to go
Back to the
down to the
ground.
ground as much, so
Now they're hanging out.
they will eat more of your house, And and if you have formosan termites, they actually can live there for a very long time if you have very high moisture or a leaky pipe.
So let's go back into the moisture and the dehumidifier. Now, a dehumidifier has many levels and settings on it. It seems like it's got like the 40, at 35, it's 45, it's 50, it's 60. Where is that dehumidifier supposed to be set at? What's the ideal
So,
temperature to set it at?
Is
Or-
there something written down? Is this somebody that is gonna call me out on this? No, because there's no rule that says you're supposed to have it at this number or that number. I like 50 personal. right?
Okay.
50 is a good number. If you have a lot of moisture, if you have a lot of efflorescent coming out through the walls, maybe you wanna go down 45. I always say oversize it. Don't be cheap about it, like we install these dehumidifiers that are, they're like $1,800. And they'll do the whole basement. We can install ductwork on it, so
Wow.
you can do different rooms, right? You can pull from different rooms and.
That's a good idea.
We'll dehumidify the whole basement. And when you go and you buy a smaller one, and it just runs more, right? And it just keeps running and it's not keeping up.
So that's kind of where I was getting with this because I had it set, I think, at 40. And every time I go in the basement, it's running. It's running all the time. I'm like, oh my God.
40 is quite a bit.
And I'm not sure if
Your
that's.
little one is running all the time.
Yeah, is that too low to set it?
It's too low. You can,
Because
45, 50, 50 is a good number.
Okay.
Like if you want to be a little bit better than average, 45 is good.
okay,
But if you put one of those smaller units and you put it at 45, it's constantly running. It's not going to take a break.
that's kind of what I'm finding. The
And
eventual electricity bill.
dehumidifiers are no different than, today with electricity being so expensive, are no different than running an air conditioning on the window.
Great.
Because they will take that humidity and put it into water and, it's quite a bit. And not as much as a unit on the window, but
Well,
It's still pretty
it's
good.
amazing during the summertime how much water, before you came over to help me out, how every
How
day,
often you have to-
every day was a, I mean, you put in the morning on, by the nighttime, it's bucket full of water. I'm like, holy crap. That's in serious
So
amount of
what do you
water.
do with all the free time you have?
Well, with the free time that I have, I like to try and spend a little bit of time with my daughter, which, you know, I guess
That's perfect, right?
try
So think
to,
about
you
it.
know?
Like if you spend a little bit of time on these little things that don't make much sense, but you
Yeah.
just get them done, then you can have so much more free time, right?
And the reason
And
I
peace
have
of
free
mind.
time is because
Yeah.
I have peace of mind, and I have peace of mind because of Marco Miranda. And that makes the whole circle come back to the beginning of the moisture and the termites and everything else a better place. This conversation is very, very important for all of you guys to know, understand. I can't believe we've been talking about 30 minutes already and about this whole thing. And there's so much more to talk about. And I'm sure that you're learning, and if you're not learning, you need to start paying attention because this is so relevant to not only yourself, but your family, your friends, and people you know. Make sure to share this podcast. Make sure to share this information with people you know. Tag them in the podcast. Let them know more about it. Because educating your friends, your family is only going to help them save money and headaches. And probably health concerns as well.
Yep.
And health is number one. I mean, you got to be healthy, right? Like, I don't care if you go to the gym every day like Eric, or that don't go to the gym like me. If you live in a house with mold,
Sounded like you said dongle. Don't go.
I don't.
Inside joke.
Not don't go. Inside joke. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Just don't check his computer. So, you know, even if you're a healthy person, you're still gonna bother you. You know, like you live in a house with mold, and you know, cleaning it with bleach. If you're not finding the source, if you have your basement full of mold and you go there with bleach and you clean it all up, a couple weeks later it's gonna be the same.
Exactly
Because you're
right.
not taking care of the problem, and the humidity is a really bad thing for mold. You know.
Yeah. I think it's very important for y'all to know, again, to understand what humidity is, what mold is, what moisture is. You might know it like in the words, but do you know it from an actual experience in having a home or living in a home or someone's home you've been into before, where the basement you walk down, you feel a little bit of moisture. Wow, it seems moist down here. And they may not have recognized it because they're so used to it, right?
Yes.
Or your kids are down there playing in a basement. You want to make sure it's a healthy environment for them to be in. Or maybe it's your spouse that hangs out in the basement and they seem to be getting sick more often. They're coughing, they're sneezing.
Then you might be doing it on purpose.
Yeah, it could be, exactly. It could be on purpose,
Hiding.
right?
Yes.
But
Save.
you want to make sure you understand what
That's
these things are all about, right? So these things are important to learn about and to know about, and hopefully this is educating you as homeowners, as buyers, as sellers, because you don't want to be in this position of selling a home. And as far as people who are in this business, industry, real estate agents, insurance people, and
How many
everything else,
sellers find out that they have mold? You didn't know it?
very often.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we did, your guys did, it was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But, I had a client who was buying a house in West Hartford. And she was pregnant, and she was having a baby, and she's like, I need this house to be tip-top shape. And they did the mold test, and they did the control and
Yep.
everything, and it was like, there was a bunch of mold in the house. And there was no evidence of any mold in any way, shape, or form in the house.
And it's funny how you said the control, right? You said you did the control. So
I have to explain what a control is, though, because people don't know what that
So the
means.
control
Yeah.
is, so the way we test for mold, we take your samples inside the house, and then we take a sample on the outside of the house. And that's the control, to see if there's molds coming out from the outside, or if you have a problem inside the house. There's a lot of molds that I can tell you right away that it's a water issue. There's other ones that can be a plant, or other things that you can have, So different molds can be caused by different things.
People have a lot
That's
of
why we
It's
do
almost
the
like a
control.
DNA.
People have a
where
lot
they
of-
can say what the
Yes.
sources are.
And people
yeah.
have a lot of plants in their homes could have more mold because of the moisture from the plants.
And if you ever, we used a lab down in Florida, and I was lucky enough to go down to their lab, and it was amazing, because they still do it by hand. Even though we have all these computers today, they still look at through a microscope, and they see what type of molds you have. And the way they look at it, if you're new at it, you're always constantly looking at the wall, because they have a huge picture in the wall with all the different types of molds. So they have to match the one that they look at.
That's pretty wild.
It was wild to see, you know.
Wow, wow,
I'm
wow.
actually surprised it comes back so quick, you know, like, usually like 4 or 5 days you can get the results back. And, they do it pretty quick. And, you know, it's good to know what type of mold, because if you just focus on, a little dark spot, you're only gonna know what the mold is. You're not gonna know what everything else is. So that's why we do the air sample, so we know what type of molds we deal with.
It wouldn't be a bad idea for you guys to bring in the Miranda team and have them do a mold test in your house. It's not too expensive to do that, right?
No.
I mean, it's a great thing to do.
No.
Understand the mold if you do have mold, and maybe you have people again who are getting sick in your house, allergies, coughing. Maybe it's something, everybody thinks they have COVID. Every COVID, it's gotta be COVID. It's gotta be COVID. Or maybe it's just mold. Maybe you have mold in your house.
Or the kid in kindergarten who's
No.
bringing everything home.
We also,
Exactly. Facts.
and if you take allergy medicine, right? And then if you're taking allergy pills and you take the mold report to your doctor, they can actually adjust the medicine to where you live, you know, like, because if you just have allergens, sometimes it's hard to clean. I mean, UV light, it's one of the best things to do, but if you don't have a furnace, if you have
Baseboard heat.
baseboard heat, then you would have, you can adjust that medicine to.
Isn't that from the UV light?
to yeah, you was in the UV
Spend
light
too
too.
much time in the UV light.
A little vitamin D.
You also get a tan.
Yeah.
It takes about 5 seconds for you to burn your eyeballs looking at that light.
Yeah, I don't want to look at the lights.
So don't look at it.
No lights.
Don't look at the light.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Miranda, the Miranda Team Home Inspections. Great company, very knowledgeable, going to give you a lot of information. You're going to learn a lot. It's important to make sure they have your phone number. What's the number that they should be calling to get a hold of you and your company?
203-526-8183.
And we have Thane in the background that's on the screen rolling through,
You got it
right?
right, or just confirming.
Maybe a website that might be, is there
That's
a
the right number, Marco.
do they have a website that you can go and visit? Is there a website for your company, your team?
Oh, no, you're pushing it, Dave.
Ooh.
Website?
www.pillartopost.com/MarcoMiranda.
Are we for sure on that?
Sounds right.
Yes.
Sounds right.
Or you
So,
can look at the Miranda team.
No, yes.
All right. so, Marco Miranda, thank you so much for being
Thank
part
you
of this
for
amazing
having us,
show.
for
Awesome
having me,
stuff.
you know.
Very knowledgeable information. And next, we're going to give out a free tumbler. So, Thane,
We have to have them come back though, because we didn't cover the trees and shrub stuff.
We did
thing,
not
and-
cover the wet basements. We got
minute,
stuck
get it?
on the
I apologize.
humidity,
All
and
right.
that was it.
so we'll have you
So
come back in
cool.
a couple more weeks. So
Yeah,
come
come
back.
back,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
All
big
right.
topic.
What we should do is we should have you come maybe once a month here. I think it'd be great because there's a lot of topics we can do here. Bridget, think we can book them once a month? Would that be too much to ask?
I think we can make some.
Melanie might get a little
I
jealous.
love-
Maybe we bring
I
Melanie
love
once in a
our-
while over here. She can be a part of the show. You
Sure.
know,
Melanie, leave a thumbs up if we can do that.
you know. But we'd like to have you once a month here talking about different aspects of homes, molds, moisture, water, heating, cooling,
Trees and
roofs,
shrubs.
trees and shrubs. I mean, there's so many things. Radon, termite. There's so many things we can talk about all the time, and everybody gets to learn.
I always recommend take care of your house. It's worth, it's
The
worth a
most
lot of money,
important
right?
investment you
Especially
make.
now, right? It's worth a lot of money. So,
Absolutely.
if you take care of it, when you go to sell, it's not going to be a disappointment for you. It's gonna be a happiness moment that you went through an inspection and little things, whatever, but when you have major things, 1% of the value of your house needs to go back to the house every year.
1% of the value. of
If
your
the house is well kept.
I like that.
If it's not well kept, then you have some catching up to do, but if you all cut up, 1%.
Hold on, 1% if you've been on top of it. For you, that means it's probably 10% a year to start with, because of the, make a list, one item at a
1%
time,
works, you know,
right?
like 1% of the value of the house works, doesn't matter what type of house.
Thane, let's go to a free tumbler giveaway for some special winner. You know, we should also get your team out there on this tumbler giveaway as well, you know? All right, who's gonna win?
Alice 08860.
Alice! I forgot the numbers, but
8860.
There's a
Alice,
6 somewhere.
thank you so much for being a part of our show and being a part of our podcast. The Team Powerhouse Show loves to be a part of your lives every week. Please let us know if you'd like to win a tumbler. You can put your name on the list. Spins it around and see if you can be the lucky winner. Marco Miranda, Miranda Team Home Inspection, Eric Vasquez, Bridget from behind the scenes, Thane behind the camera, and more to come next week. Do you know who's coming on the show next week, Eric?
Be a good one.
I heard, what?
Be a good
Can it
one.
be a good one? Okay. I heard that,
Like, am I coming back or what?
I heard that maybe you got Taylor Swift or no?
Taylor Swift is soon to be coming on the show,
Okay.
apparently.
I heard Dave was
but-
working on it.
But
I'm coming at the same time. I'll take Bridget's seat over there.
next week is one of your biggest fans that come in the show. She always asks about you, and she finally has decided to be a part of the show. She's going to bring with her some things for us to play with. She wants to know
There you
that
go.
Eric is going to be involved in making slime and playing with slime. And she also might bring in some dolls in the show as well. You guessed it. Her name is
Drew
Drew Juliana Lamel is coming on the show
Drew Lamel.
next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to learn how to make slime, there's different kind of aspects of slime. She's very involved in the slime. She's super excited to
Is
see.
it messy?
It's
Did I dress
very messy.
appropriately? Am I gonna get a smock?
It's
You have
definitely
to get the
messy.
humidity level
I need a smock.
just right.
There might be a smock situation involved. Slime doesn't come out of clothes so easily. It's a pain in the
Is
butt.
there a pillow to post smock?
That's
Hey,
actually a
I
really
like
good
the
idea.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, really a bad idea. So Drew Juliana Lamel is coming on. She also likes to be called by her Hebrew name now, Shayna. She told us she wants to be calling her
Shayna.
Shayna.
It's a
Drew,
cool name.
it's a pretty name, means beautiful.
I don't blame her for
Yeah,
wanting
right.
to be called that name.
So Drew's coming on the show next week. We're gonna have a lot of fun. So please stay tuned. And please, I remember again, Marco Miranda, Miranda Home Inspections. It's a company that is gonna educate you, teach you what you need to know about your house,
Protect you.
protect you,
Thank you,
and
guys.
make life a
Appreciate
better
it.
place. Well, listen, like you said, it's your home. It's the most important asset you own,
Yep.
right?
You said ask that, right?
asset,
Okay.
yes.
I didn't hear that. I'm just asking.
And you need to make sure to invest in your home. You got to protect it
Did you
for
hear
a situation here, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Thank you so much for having me. I
Absolutely. Thank
appreciate
you guys,
guys.
everybody, for
You guys are
joining us
great.
again, and